Hello everyone and welcome back to the Pokemon 2020 Regional Championships here. Seems like the camera got sprung on us that time. Anyway, we were going to get into this game. We have our round 5 match coming on here. We have two of the greats from VGC. We have Eduardo Cunha versus Francesco Pardini. So really exciting to be casting these players' games.
Yeah, so both of the players have done really well, and now they're already, I believe, at 4-0 now, or 3-1?
4-0, I believe.
Yeah, and they're definitely really doing well. I think they're also going to go very far in this tournament. Oh, I was right, they were actually 3-1 currently. So both of these players, you know, if they want to top cut, they have to kind of win out on the next previous matches that they're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, we've got top 16 cut here, so these players may be able to lose one more game, but it's not likely, and not guaranteed that they are going to be able to make the top cut if they lose one more game. So something that they definitely don't want to do. Unfortunately, one of them is going to lose this game, so these players are going to have to go all out to carry on that streak and end the day with, hopefully, if all goes well for both of them, or one of them, 8 wins and 1 loss.
Yeah, you're completely correct on that. I think that's definitely something that we're gonna see. I really hope also we're gonna get kind of looking back at like the previous round. We've had quite a lot of interesting teams here, and now looking at it, definitely a really interesting team there. We have that Sylvanic combination with that Inteleon.
Yeah, we do, and we saw 2 Inteleons in the last round, and now we're seeing another one. So a Pokemon that wasn't necessarily on the top of everybody's agenda, making quite a lot of an impact in this tournament. But we've also got some more Pokemon that are new. We've got Dracovish there that's going to be doing a lot of work. And again, we've got this double water combination going on here. So clearly something that players are gravitating towards. But also, we've got that Silvally.
Yeah, definitely also they kind of suggesting that they could have a pledge combination, since we do have that Silvally combination with the Inteleon. We also have that Chandelure and that Togekiss, where I kind of feel like, again, we're kind of seeing that option to Trick Room, but also that option to kind of go a little bit more with, like, for instance, Dynamax your Togekiss, go for a Max Airstream, boost your speed that way.
Yeah, exactly. And both Togekiss and Inteleon have the ability to do that. So depending on how these players have trained their Pokemon, deciding what moves that they want to bring into the tournament will really impact this match. Francesco there, you can see on the screen, is a long-standing player in the VGC community with championship wins dating back to 2011, which is the first year that I started competing way back in the day, but also getting top 8 in the World Championships that year and coming back a few years later to win the Italian National Championships in 2015.
Yeah, so definitely someone who's played for a very long time and exactly knows what they're doing. So here we see Edu kind of running that Dragapult, which we've seen quite a lot of on stream already. And together he's also, you know, done quite well on like multiple World Championships. He's got a top 16 in 2019, and he also got a 3rd place in 2016.
Yeah, 2016 was really the breakout year for Eduardo. He was, until that point, a really well-respected player in the community, but it wasn't until that 2016 World Championships that he broke through that glass ceiling, was able to make it to the top cut of the World Championships, and even get through the first round of that top cut to make it to top 4 and eventually finish off in 3rd place. But of course, he's been consistent since then, right the way through to 2019 season, and probably expect to see him in the 2020 season doing very well as well.
Also, our Pokemon there, I noticed is Corviknight, not actually thinking someone that we've seen on stream very much. We've seen it a few times in Team Preview, but it does have that hidden ability of Mirror Armor, so that's definitely, I think, something Francesco there has to take into account.
Yeah, definitely. As we come into Team Preview here, so we have that Rotom Cut, Inteleon, Dracovish, Chandelure, Silvally, and Togekiss for Francesco.
Yeah, and on Adam's side, he's running that Whimsicott, that Corviknight we were just talking about, the Gastrodon, the Heat Rotom, the Scrafty, and the Dragapult that we've seen so much about.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got this dynamic of mirror armor, as you were talking about on the Corviknight, but not likely to make a great deal of impact in this game unless we see Chandelure going for its Dynamax form and putting out those Max Phantasms and trying to drop the defenses of Eduardo's team. So Corviknight's ability not going to come into play too much here, but it looks like that the Gastrodon on Ed's side of the team may be doing quite a bit of work with the potential to redirect something like a Vicious Rend away from Dracovish on Francesco's side of the field. So both players have got some things to watch out for here. It looks like both players are looking to be the fastest thing on the field. Doesn't look like there's too much opportunity for anything like a Trick Room to come out to reverse speeds. So both players are going to have to watch their speed control, and Ed has that ability to use the Tailwind with a Whimsicott and really get the speed control quickly, where Francesco maybe have to take a couple of turns with that Max Airstream.
Yeah, again, both these players putting so much effort into the league cards. I really love seeing them. People being so creative and so much fun. And here we see that Whimsicott lead coming out from Edu together with that Heat Rotom. And on Francesco's side, we see that Inteleon and Silvally combination.
Yeah, so depending on which item that Silvally is holding will change its type. Potentially a Dark type coming out here. So could be holding that Dark Memory, which will change Inteleon's signature attack, multi-attack into the Dark type. But also, if that's the case, will make it weak to that Whimsicott's Moonblast. So something Francesco has to be aware of going into this turn. Now, speed is a big thing that's going to be a part of this game, and Eduardo has come out right off the bat. He probably wants to set up that Tailwind with Whimsicott, maybe make his Rotom faster initially than the Inteleon on Francesco's side of the field and just get an attack off.
Yeah, Inteleon going for that Water Pledge in combination with the Grass Pledge here into that Whimsicott, meaning that now the Swamp is going to come up, and I believe now every speed on Eddie is actually quartered right now. So even if he went for something like that Tailwind, he's still going to be slower than Francesco's Pokemon. He does go for that Moonblast, not enough to pick up the KO on that Silvally, and the Inteleon also living that Volt Switch.
Yeah, so lots of things happening there. Francesco using up two of his move slots, and two attacks in order to get that get that Swamp on the field and lower the speed of Eduardo's Pokemon. So he's going to be probably moving first for the remainder of the effective Swamp, which lasts for 5 turns in total. And Eduardo has, in return, managed to do quite a lot of damage. So Francesco, even though he has the speed advantage now, is going to have to pressure Eduardo as much as he can and reclaim that damage that he's lost.
We also see that Corviknight switching in which we were just talking about. And he did decide to bring it Silvally, not wanting to stay on the field here. Switching in that Chandelure, quite a good option facing this Whimsicott and the Corviknight. Edu also realizing Whimsicott might not be the best option here. It isn't really going to help with something like Tailwind, and he switches back in his Rotom Heat, and actually Corviknight is also leaving the field here on Edu's side, and that Gastrodon is switching in. So that Water Pledge going into the Storm Drain ability of Gastrodon is going to raise its special attack by 1 stage. Quite a good turn here for Edu.
Yeah, exactly. So we have the option for Inteleon to use the signature move of Snipe Shot, which would have ignored that Storm Drain coming in from the Gastrodon, but because Francesco's opted to play Water Pledge, it allows Eduardo the opportunity to bring in that Gastrodon, use the Storm Drain ability to redirect all water moves towards it and get a special attack boost. Looks like he's now probably going to want to start to use that, and certainly in a good position, putting a lot of pressure on both Chandelure and Inteleon with that Gastrodon.
Yeah, Chandelure really not feeling too comfortable facing down that Gastrodon. Silvally here is switching back in, has to possibly, take an KO, take an attack coming either from that Rotom Heat or from that Gastrodon. And we are going to see immediately that Dynamax form, which is going to be that Gastrodon.
Yeah, so get the Gastrodon on the field, get the special attack boost. Hey, why not Dynamax as well and take full advantage of it, get those big damaging max moves out onto the field and really start doing even more damage than he's already done.
Yeah, Italian feeling quite scared in this position, just going to go for a protect. Also, Rotom Heat is deciding to, just go for an attack, doesn't want to take any water attacks. If in case that's Gastrodon, if he does actually run that snipe shot. But, Max Quake here going into that Silvally is enough to pick up the KO and will also boost the special defenses here on Edu's side, which is quite good if you're facing down something like an Italian with a Chandelure in the back.
Yeah, definitely. And a really nice protect there from Rotom. Francesco, though, he is waiting to use his own Dynamax. So bringing in that Togekiss there, which is something that sometimes we see going into the Dynamax form. Probably Francesco doesn't want to use his Dynamax on Inteleon because it's now at such low HP that he doesn't want to waste his Dynamax, wants to make most use of it. And it may be that now Togekiss is on the field, this is the time. But Gastrodon raising the special defense, as you said, on Eduardo's side of the field, going to make it difficult for Francesco to push through.
Yeah, Francesco also now deciding to go for that Dynamax, probably going into that Togekiss since that Inteleon was such low health.
Yeah, exactly, and it is Togekiss that comes out here, so maybe something like a Max Airstream, try to get even more speed control on the field, or maybe change the terrain with Max Starfall.
That's definitely a really good option, and Italian actually going for a Ice Shard into its own Togekiss. So now activating that weakness policy is going to raise this Togekiss attack and special attack by 2 stages. So now this Max Starfall is probably going to do a lot of damage into that Gastrodon, but it's so bulky because of those special defense boosts.
Yeah, let's see why that Max Quake is so vital coming in here. Even at 2 stages of special attack, that Togekiss isn't putting a dent into Gastrodon.
Now the Volt Switch here coming out from Rotom Heat, enough to pick up the KO on this Inteleon now. So Francesco just kind of down to his last 2 Pokemon, which we did already see that it had that Chandelure in the back.
Yeah, so Chandelure has in previous formats run grass type moves, so it usually has access to something like Energy Ball, and that may be really important coming into the last few turns. We see Whimsicott coming out from Eduardo and finishing off the turn with a Max Geyser.
Yeah, this Gastrodon taking some revenge here on this Togekiss, doing some extra damage here on the Togekiss. Still with the Dynamax form. These Pokemon are so incredibly bulky.
Yeah, they are, and so incredibly powerful as well. I mean, you see Gastrodon's doing so much damage to the Dynamax form Togekiss as we see Chandelure coming back onto the field for Francesco. So we'll see if it does indeed carry a grass type move. Maybe Francesco just wants to wait out the last turn of Eduardo's Dynamax Gastrodon and maybe still attack with the Togekiss. He has got that weakness policy activated, as we said before, so going to be doing a lot of damage. May want to just dispatch the Whimsicott, make sure that's off the field so that in the last turns Francesco has the opportunity to just target down that Gastrodon, target down the Rotom Heat that we've seen in the back, and whatever else Eduardo has on the field.
Yeah, so he also still has that Corviknight, so Eddie still has 4 Pokemon left, and a Tailwind here coming out from Whimsicott is going to double the speed here on Edu's side. Togekiss going for a Max Airstream into the Gastrodon. He's doing quite a good amount of damage here extra and will raise its speed. So since Edu did go for that Tailwind, Edu is quite likely to kind of still outspeed it as Shadow Ball comes out from the Chandelure. Max Geyser here from Gastrodon going into that Chandelure, and that's definitely not able to take this.
Yeah, there's a few things that Chandelure would be able to survive the attack from. A boosted rain, both rain boosted and special attack boosted Gastrodon is definitely not one of them, especially when they're sporting that Max Geyser. So yeah, big knockout there for Eduardo, and Francesco's got an uphill battle here trying to be able to deal with that Gastrodon, the Whimsicott, and the 2 other Pokemon that Eduardo has in the back.
Yeah, definitely a tough position here for Francesco, and he just plays it out here. Whimsicott going for that Moonblast as Max Flare is actually revealed from that Togekiss. Will be enough to pick up the knockout on that Whimsicott here, but it's still going to be quite a tough battle here. It was quite a good play since now the rain disappeared from the field and the sun came up, so Gastrodon is going to do a little bit less damage now, and you definitely see this call, the Togekiss in his Dynamax form takes that very easily.
Yeah, exactly. So a really nice play for Francesco, definitely playing to his outs, but in setting up that sun, he has increased the power of that Rotom that's come out from Eduardo, the overheat potential that Eduardo should be running on that Rotom. So a little bit of a double-edged sword, but Rotom deciding to just go for a Volt Switch and finish off the game.
Yeah, so Edu here coming out victorious with actually 3 Pokemon left. So Francesco, even though he kind of did get that Swamp in turn 1, was able to quarter the speed on Edu's side. Edu just really felt like, you know, I know what to do. I'm gonna get this boost here on my Gastrodon and just go for the Dynamax and start just doing a lot of damage against Francesco's team.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, when you're trying to set up speed control, you can't take too much of a disadvantage for doing it, right? If your Pokemon are faster than everything on the field, but they're gonna faint in one hit, or not stay on the field and keep dishing out that damage while they have the speed advantage, then you're not going to get the value out of them. So that's exactly what happened here, and I think Francesco has to go back to the drawing board here, decide whether setting up that Swamp is worthwhile, and if so, how is he going to do it in a way that he doesn't take so much damage?
Yeah, so maybe he wants to kind of bring a different Pokemon. Edu was quite, you know, smart to realize, like, you know, if I just do a lot of damage here on these 2 Pokemon, it's going to be really hard for Francesco to come back to that, especially because he also has that Tailwind, so once that runs out, Edu can just kind of take over with speed control.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going back into team preview here, so we'll see if these players want to switch it up.
Yeah, so kind of going for Francesco, what would you like to see now going into Game 2?
Well, I really do think that the pledge moves are a really nice option for Francesco, but I don't think this is the matchup for them. I think he's really got to go into that Togekiss more in this game. And we saw that towards the end of the game, Francesco started to make headway. We saw that Ice Shard activating the weakness policy of the Togekiss, which is a really potent strategy. Making sure that you've got your Dynamax Pokemon with its weakness policy is absolutely common to the format by the looks of things, and Francesco has that option. I think he does need to make better use of it. And if that's the case, I think then substituting maybe that Rotom Mow into the mix, being able to deal with that Gastrodon is going to be so important to allow both Inteleon and Dracovish on Francesco's side of the field to be able to attack.
Yeah, Gastrodon definitely a Pokemon you always kind of have to keep in the back. It only has one weakness, being Grass type. So if you're not really doing super effective damage, and especially now when it has Dynamax, it's so hard to take down.
Yeah, it's really hard to take down. But here we are going into turn 1 of Game 2. We see these trainer cards coming out and looking absolutely lovely. But let's see what these players have decided to lead and whether they've decided to mix things up.
Yeah, so on Edu's side we see that Scrafty and Corviknight combination, so he did decide to switch it up. And on Francesco's side, he's still kind of going for that Silvally and Inteleon combination.
Yeah, so whether we see the pledge moves come out again, we may do it. May be central to Francesco's strategy and the way that he wants to play this game. And it's really important to say here that Silvally has so many options that it can use. It has so many great support moves like Parting Shot, which allow it to switch out and lower the attack and special attack of its opponent, as well as Inteleon having a lot of coverage moves as well. So not necessarily just the pledge moves that this combination can do, but equally Francesco is going to have to worry about a potential fake out coming out from Eduardo. Corviknight has been known to use moves like Bulk Up to get going and start to raise its stats and really start being a potent threat.
Yeah, so Scrafty not gonna go for a fake out, is actually leaving the field here. Rotom Heat instead is switching in, and Eduardo, I believe here, immediately going for the Dynamax?
It looks that way. Let's see what he's brought out here. It looks like it's going to be that Corviknight coming out, so yeah, good choice for Eduardo, maybe wanting to do some max airstreaming of his own.
Yeah, or then it's definitely easier to raise its own speed, but it also can start raising its defenses if it does run that max Steel Spike. But, you know, facing now more special attackers, I think he's definitely one to go for something like a max Airstream. So a double protect here coming out turn 1 from Francesco's side, and we do see Corviknight going for a max airstream into the Inteleon, doing just a little bit of chip damage through the Protect, but it will raise the speed of both the Rotom and the Corviknight.
Yeah, and that's really important. And Eduardo's done something that's really well executed. He's brought in his Rotom, he's used that max airstream and made sure the right Pokemon has got the right boost. And in this case, what that means is Inteleon is going to be, the Rotom is likely going to be faster than that Inteleon. And we've already seen Volt Switch coming out from Rotom. Even though it loses that speed advantage, may be worth Eduardo using that this turn, seeing if he can take the knockout onto Inteleon on Francesco's side of the field. Even if he loses the boost, he does stop Francesco being able to set up that swamp by removing one of the pledges.
Yeah, Inteleon realizing that it doesn't want to possibly take any Volt Switches, it is going to switch out for that Rotom Mow, while Rotom exactly goes for that Volt Switch. Rotom Mow very easily to take that here. The Rotom Heat now gonna go back to Edu, and he either has a chance to switch in that Scrafty or reveal what he has as a last Pokemon.
Yeah, and it will be that Scrafty coming in, recycle that Intimidate, recycle that Fake Out.
Yeah, so a Fake Out is also definitely a move that we've seen through so many formats, and it's so incredibly good to kind of just stop your opponent from moving with for one turn. As a Max Steel Spike is coming out from Corviknight into the Silvally, as it will now raise its defenses.
Yeah, so we've got then Corviknight raising the fences and a Snarl coming out from Silvally at the end of the turn.
Yeah, definitely, Monk can run quite a amount of different moves here, but actually it is going to be that Mirror Armor that actually lowers now the special attack of that Silvally.
Yeah, so here I was saying that Mirror Armor wasn't going to play a part in the game. It's definitely playing a part in the game and actually going to be really crucial for Eduardo here, that Rotom on Francesco's side of the field that's just come in is a threat to Corviknight, and Corviknight doesn't really want to deal with that electric type coverage, so really good there for Eduardo that he's got that Mirror Armor. It is going to be lowering, unfortunately, the special attack on his own Rotom. So yeah, good turn there for Eduardo, and it looks like now that we had that Max Airstream coming out on the first turn, that Francesco is really on the back foot here. He needs to do something to either gain some offensive pressure or get back into the game.
Yeah, Edu switching out that Scrafty again, just wanting to kind of have it in the bag, make able that it can recycle those Intimidates. And also Francesco here finally deciding to use his Dynamax format. It is going to be that Rotom Mow.
Yeah, it is. It's not potentially going to be doing as much damage as maybe Francesco would like to do with that reduced stage of special attack, though.
Yeah, Corviknight opting to go for another Max Airstream into this Rotom. Now, going to be quite easily taking that in its Dynamax form, but Edu is going to raise again its speed. So it's now, Corviknight is probably going to be the fastest thing on the field. But Silvally says, no, I have Icy Wind, I'm just going to lower back down your speed.
And equally, Corviknight on Eduardo's side of the team says, you know what, we want to reduce your speed as well.
Exactly, so a Max Lightning here coming out from that Rotom Mow. Definitely a strong attack, but I believe Corviknight was just able to hang on with a sliver of health, as we do actually see that is revealing to be the life of Variant.
Yeah, so wow, we didn't know that Snarl was going to cause such an effect on the field, but it really did. It looks like now this is the start of the pushback for Francesco. He's moving forward, he's trying to deal damage, using that speed control from Silvally and really showing off the breadth of moves that Silvally has access to. So really good there from Francesco, but he does have to keep watching out for this Mirror Armor. If he keeps using moves like Snarl and Icy Wind into Corviknight, he is going to have some problems because all of those stat drops reflect back.
Yeah, so Silvally here switching out Togekiss, which we've seen was a very, very useful for Francesco, is going to be switching in, and Edu here revealing that its Corviknight has Roost, so it's going to be healing back half damage as Rotom here goes for a max overgrowth into the Rotom Heat on Edu's side. You know, and some extra damage, but definitely not the biggest target for it.
No, and quite a fun time for having grassy terrain on the field where no Pokemon is affected by it.
Yeah, Rotom Heat firing back with an overheat of its own is enough to pick up the KO on the Dynamax here on Francesco's side. It will lower its own special attack by 2 stages, but definitely did its job here with taking down the Rotom.
Yeah, and also managing to keep that Corviknight on the field. That's going to be really big for Eduardo. Especially facing down something like this Togekiss that's just come in, and potentially that Inteleon as well that's popped in from Francesco's side of the field. We have had a lot of switching in and switching out. I may have got this wrong, but I think Rotom Heat is still at 1 stage of increased speed after the last Max Airstream that came out from Corviknight. So if that's the case, and if I've seen that correctly with all the switching in and switching out, we're probably in a similar situation to right early at the game where that Rotom is going to be able to do some damage to that Inteleon.
But instead, Rotom is switching out, Edu revealing his last Pokemon, which is going to be that Gastrodon. Yeah, just as we saw in Game 1, Ice Shard coming out from that Inteleon is going to boost that weakness policy on the Togekiss, but it now doesn't have access to any Dynamax form. So Corviknight just going to go for another roost, pretty much healing itself back up to full health.
Yeah, and Togekiss bringing out that Heat Wave.
Ooh, missing the Corviknight there. Definitely an important miss here. Just doing a tiny bit of chip damage on that Gastrodon. But, you know, sometimes moves just can miss, and sometimes they're in quite important scenarios like this.
Yeah, best laid plans and all of that, hitting all your moves. I think if you decide to use those moves, you have to accept that sometimes they do miss. And hey, that's what happened for Francesco here. But not the end of the world. Corviknight was at full health before the Heat Wave came out, so you know, all it's going to do is allow Corviknight to maybe use one more attack that it didn't before. That Heat Wave is something that Eduardo's going to have to be really conscious of. He has got switch-ins though. We could see that Rotom Heat coming back in for Corviknight, making sure it resisted that Heat Wave coming out from the Togekiss.
Yeah, Inteleon switching out on Francesco's side. We see that Silvally switch back in as Corviknight wants to go for an Iron Head into the Togekiss. Not really have to worry about boosting that weakness policy, but it is going to flinch. That Togekiss not going to be able to move, and Gastrodon follows it up with a Scald enough to pick up the KO on this Togekiss here.
Yeah, so a little bit unfortunate for Francesco there. A little bit different to normal. We normally see Togekiss dishing out the flinches, and in this case it was the Togekiss. So a little bit unfortunate there for Francesco, but he's still got his Inteleon. May be able to do something in combination with this Silvally. We've already seen the Grass Pledge coming out from the Silvally, so we do know that that Gastrodon is under threat for Grass-type coverage. It wasn't just the Rotom that was able to deal with it, as that Gastrodon decides to protect.
Yeah, Gastrodon realizing it doesn't want to take any Grass Pledges is going to go for the Protect. Corviknight here firing off a Brave Bird. Not enough to pick up the KO. Inteleon living on just 7 HP while it fires back a big Ice Beam here into the Corviknight. A Grass Pledge is going to go into the Protect of that Gastrodon.
Yeah, exactly. So Inteleon going down to such low HP is going to be difficult for Francesco to deal with here. Unfortunately, that Inteleon is stopped by Gastrodon, or at least its main form of attacking in Water Pledge is stopped by that Gastrodon Storm Drain ability. So Francesco trying to remove the Gastrodon from the field and then maybe attack later with Inteleon, but that's not the case. Francesco knows that's the case and forfeits the game, giving the win to Eduardo Cunha.
Yeah, so Eduardo also changing it a little bit up here going into game 2. Like, he brought that Scrafty, but again he brought that Gastrodon, which seemed to be quite important here. He also just kind of threatens Francesco, you know, with those Water Pledges that he just can't freely go for them.
Yeah, exactly. We saw the Water Pledge being really actually quite significant here, and Eduardo taking advantage of that going into game 2, making sure he had access to that Storm Drain ability, and that's a really big deal for the matchup. When you look at a team with 2 Water type moves, and certainly 2 Water type moves that are always single target, you do look at that Gastrodon and think, yeah, that's probably going to be quite good for me, isn't it?
Yeah, so in game 2, Francesco did bring that Rotom Mo kind of to try and deal with that Gastrodon, but Eddie did have a Rotom Heat, which was quite able to, just go for an overheat into it and kind of quite well deal with it, because we've kind of seen a lot of like Rotom Mo or Rotom Wash or Rotom Heat, and they kind of, beat each other.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the thing when you get into these situations of how does a matchup go. You get one Pokemon beats the next Pokemon, which beats the next Pokemon, and somehow you've got to shift that pattern around so that the right Pokemon beats the right Pokemon for you. So a common term in the VGC community is Pokemon beats Pokemon with move, which is basically to say this Pokemon beats this Pokemon in this situation, and that's the difficulty that Francesco had there, making sure that his Inteleon could act in the presence of that Gastrodon.
Yeah, so kind of looking at Francesco's team, I do think his team kind of revolves around that Inteleon and that Silvally, kind of getting to opportunity to, set up that swamp, quarter the speed, and possibly not take too much damage. But Edu realized that, and just, especially in game 1, just knew, like, if I just do a lot of damage to them, doesn't matter that swamp goes up.
Yeah, exactly. And we saw that, how these players played around the speed and the speed control in the game. We're going to go to a short break now, but we will be back very soon with Eduardo Cunha for your winners interview. Stay tuned.
Hello everyone and welcome back. I'm here joined with Edu who just won round 5 of this Bochum Regional. How are you feeling?
Well, I feel great, very relieved, especially after seeing that team preview. I was really scared, so I'm especially against the player that he was. So I'm really happy.
So how are you liking VGC 2020 now?
Well, I don't want to jinx it, but I'm liking it a lot. I've been playing it a lot, especially on stream, and it's been a lot of fun. There's always a few details that I'm not gonna like, of course. Like nothing is perfect. So there's some things like the everything running weakness policy and everything doing insane damage. But then again, there's the balance of like the 200% HP you get. Like I think there's an interesting balance.
So the team that you've been running, I think you kind of have been running this since the beginning of the format. You've been really developing it. Are you really like happy with how it developed through this season?
Yeah, like something I realized, like I had Scrafty initially. It's actually pretty funny to me that I had like D6 like week 1 of the format, and I laddered a lot. I played a lot on the online ladder and used it so much that I have insane experience with it. But I felt like I created some biases for some matchups where I was bringing the wrong Pokemon because it worked against players that weren't really used to the metagame yet, and I thought that it would just work every time. And as soon as I started using different teams and testing out different stuff, I realized that when I came back to this scene, I was playing it so differently, and it was being so more efficient, covering a lot of matchups. And I was playing, obviously, like I was playing things so differently that I felt like it wasn't even the same team almost. So I was enjoying it a lot. It's kind of refreshing, even though it's the old team, because I didn't play it for like 3 weeks or 4. And then I realized, wait, this team makes so much sense. I'm going to go back to it. And I'm really happy with it right now.
Definitely understand it. Also, when you like kind of saw that Inteleon and Sylvala Elite come out, were you kind of scared of that swamp coming out and kind of quartering your speed and making it quite hard for you to kind of beat Francesco's team?
Well, after facing so many Japanese players on the ladder, I kind of got used to some of this crazy offensive stuff. So I kind of, as soon as I saw Solvali and Inteleon, I already knew pledges are coming out. What I was most afraid of was actually the Inteleon still having Snipe Shot together with a Water Pledge, because that could really mess up my strategy with Rotom Heat and Storm Drain. So I was glad he wasn't. The Ice Shard surprised me a lot. I didn't even know Inteleon got Ice Shard. But I've seen strategies very similar before, so it wasn't the strategy itself that surprised me, but the fact that Inteleon had Ice Shard to begin with. That was the one element I was really surprised about. The Solvali, I found it interesting that it was Dark type, because usually they're like normal and more offensive. So I was very intrigued by that.
Also, one of the Pokemons that you used was Corviknight. It's not something we've actually, I think, seen a lot before. I'm kind of thinking going into this format, it would have been, Mirror Armor seems to be a really good ability. Like, why did you put Corviknight on your team specifically?
Yeah, something really good about Corviknight is that despite having about average to mediocre stats, they're just good enough to where with EV training you can like put them at the spot you want them to. And with my EV spread, I felt like I can cover so much. I can do damage, be fast, and still tank hits. And it's a matter of like also not expecting way too much from Corviknight. It's still a Corviknight, but it's the ability is like so amazing, as we saw in our game, like the Snarl being redirected back, the drop being redirected to Solvali, the Icy Wind as well. And it's just once you get to set it up, they cannot drop your stats at all. So you'll be in the position you want to. It's easy to plan ahead. It's very bulky, and it supports the team with more defensive options, which is a way I like to approach the format. Given that you see so many random max moves and boosts and insane damage, I like to do the opposite. Use my max moves to increase my defense, so I can tank their max moves, stall out Dynamax, and once Dynamax is over, I basically beat them because I tank anything they can send at me, and I deal a lot of damage back.
Yeah. So is there anyone you still want to give a shout out to?
Oh, so many people. This community is amazing. I have so many friends. It's so easy to make friends too. It's like everyone is so amazing. So I'd like to shout out rest of Europe. I like to shout out all my friends watching, especially the ones tracked from Portugal. I like to shout out Gaspacho, of course. I like to shout so many. I like to shout out Boyama Boy. I like to shout out like everyone that's been supporting me. Honestly, all my subscribers on Twitch, all my followers, all my friends. everyone, you're all amazing. Honestly, I mean this, and thank you to you two for doing an amazing job casting.
Thank you very much. And we're going to be right back for round 6.